Having purchased the Courage Brewery in London, we really started to build the Foster's brand over there. Great advertising by Paul Hogan, and of course we had 5,000 pubs under our control, and we worked with another major brewer there as well. So things were going along really well. We were ecstatic at the rate of progress we were making in the lager market, and I think our advertising campaign just caught the palms. They loved it. And the advertising we'd done at Melbourne Cup time, the advertising we did on the Grand Prix, this all made Foster's an international brand. So we decided we'd keep going. We'd started our advertising campaign in the US as well, and it was very expensive because we were shipping beer from Australia over to the US. We had the big white Carlton draft cans. They used to be sold in railway stations, so people you could always drink beer in the trains in the US. And instead of getting small cans, they didn't have to get up and stand in a queue for another one, so they'd buy the big one. In New York and Chicago, they were great sellers. So we were fortunate enough to have a look round over there, and we found Carling O'Keefe, which was the third biggest brewer in Canada, and it was relatively cheap, not performing very well, so we purchased it. And we sent Ted Kunkel over from Australia, who was sort of one of the most senior executives, to run it. We were going quite well, and what he did very clearly was it allowed us to much more efficiently produce Foster's over there and distribute it into the US, where of course we had Hogan doing some fantastic ads, put another prawn on the barbie. I've never known Australians to be putting prawns on the barbie, but my goodness, they were great ads, and Foster's took off. Molson's came to us. A guy I got to know very well was the chairman, and he said our people aren't much good. He didn't want to get out of the brewing business, so we then decided to merge Carling O'Keefe and Molson's, and that made us the biggest brewer in Canada and really strengthened our position in Northern America. We were very good friends with Philip Morris. At one stage we looked at putting that business, Miller's, into the Foster's group and the CUB group. And the ironic thing, of course, is that our other great friends, SA Brew, joined with Miller's eventually, and now they've taken over Foster's, which is very sad. So at that stage, we were really going gangbusters, and we'd become the third biggest brewer in the world. Before the crash of '87, we were looking at the size of the group. We were number one in sales of any Australian company, and about number 8 in terms of market capitalisation. And we decided strategically that we should break the businesses into brewing, finance, where we were chasing a banking licence, our international business, we were the largest exporter of agricultural produce in Australia by far, our resources business, which grew very quickly when Jeff Lord initiated with me the purchase of NZFP, which was the biggest timber paper maker in New Zealand. And we'd started Elders Investments in Hong Kong, which was also going along very well. That decision to separate, and it was taken just after the June, July, August of '87, came to a grinding halt when in October, of course, we had the significant crash. So we had to put our plans on hold. It also meant the end of Mr. Holmescourt. He was chasing some convertible notes, and when the crash came, he was out of cash. I was sitting on the board with him at BHP, one at one end of the table, the other at the other, near the twain shall meet. So all of a sudden, we had 20% of BHP, Holmescourt had 29%, and he was gone. The major issue our board had to contend with was whether or not we should buy BHP. We could have taken Holmescourt shares and run up to 49%, and then made a bid for the balance. The Hong Kong Shanghai Bank, Mr. Smith, who's now the boss of the ANZ here in Australia, he put together a facility for us, led by Hong Kong, for $12 billion to purchase BHP. We debated it at length. I wasn't altogether happy about it. I knew it was just a lot more work. We finally concluded we wouldn't buy BHP. Why? Turns out it was an error when you look at hindsight. They had a very poorly performing steel business, which was earning about 2% on funds, with huge future capital commitments, blast furnaces, etc. The three other major businesses were iron ore, coal and oil. In each of those cases you could not control the price of the commodity, and in those days the commodities weren't running that brilliantly. So you didn't have control, and even in the steel business you couldn't control it because the government kept limiting the amount of increases in steel because BHP was a monopoly. So in beer we controlled the price. We had a fantastic margin here in Australia of about 28% net after all our marketing expenditures. Same in the UK, and Canada was going along very well. So we basically decided that we would not buy BHP, and with BHP we unravelled the shares of the BHP held in us and we held in them. And I'll cover all that next week.